As and when the human civilization evolved, diseases also flourished due to proximity to animals, poor sanitation, and other reasons. Major plagues have occurred and went on a killing spree ever since 1st century AD. Now, let's take a look at the top 5 of those. Number 1. The Plague of Justinian. This plague was caused by a bacteria called Yersinia pestis. 3 of the deadliest plagues ever occurred has been caused by this deadly bacterium. In 541 AD, this plague arrived at Constantinople, which was then the capital of Byzantine Empire. This plague was caused by fleas. It then transmitted from fleas to rats, which snacked on the grains. The grains were then consumed by people and the disease started spreading like a forest fire across Europe and Asia. It is estimated to have killed almost 3 crore to 5 crore population back then. Can you guess the world's population in 541 AD? It was estimated at 10 crore, which means the disease killed almost 50% of the world's population. People had no clue of how the pandemic started or how it ended. This can be considered as the first major plague in the AD era. Number 2. Black Death 1347. This plague was caused by the same bacterium which caused the first plague and wiped out a major chunk of Europe. The plague reoccurred after almost 800 years and killed almost 20 crore people over a span of 4 years. If you all wonder how did the word quarantine emerge, here is the answer. Sailors during this pandemic were held in ships for a period of 30 days, and this was called Trentino. As time passed by, they were held in ships for a longer period of 40 days, and this was called Quarantino or quarantine. Now you understand there is no such thing called a 10-day quarantine or a 14-day quarantine. Quarantine by itself means 40 days. This plague can arguably be the worst plague ever occurred to mankind. Number 3. The Great Plague of London. The plague which I mentioned earlier, the Black Death plague, almost occurred every 20 years, claiming several lives across Europe. This time the plague was restricted only to Europe and hence can be called an epidemic and not a pandemic. The plague occurred 40 times between 1347 and 1665, and when it occurred in 1665, it was called the Great Plague of London, which killed almost 100,000 UK nationals. This was the first time when home isolation came into practice. People considered dogs and cats to be carrying the virus and mass massacred the entire bunch of dogs and cats across the United Kingdom. One bizarre thing which was practiced during the plague was victims were shut in their home with the red cross on their doors reading, "Lord have mercy." And another thing is that if one had an infected family member, he must carry a white pole when walking amidst the public, which was an indication that one of his family members were infected. It's strange, but true. Number 4. Smallpox. Smallpox is a pandemic which spread across Asia, Europe, Arabia, and the Americas. The most staggering fact about this disease is that the disease killed 3 out of every 10 infected people. The virus arrived in the 15th century, pretty much when the plague was on its peak. Apparently, the Mexicans and Americans had zero natural immunity to the virus, and the disease wiped almost 90% of the American and the Mexican population. Can you believe this? Mexico's population was reduced from 11 million to 1 million after this disease. But centuries later, smallpox became the first pandemic to have ended using a vaccine when Edward Jenner invented a vaccine in 1796. Jenner found any creature which was resistant to cowpox, a milder variety of smallpox, can develop resistance to smallpox as well. Hence, he tested injecting cowpox to his gardener's son for the first time and then exposed him gradually to smallpox virus. And he found out that the smallpox virus had no ill effect on the boy. This marked a new era in the field of medical sciences. Would we get another Edward Jenner now? World needs it desperately. Number 5. Cholera. In the early to mid-19th century, cholera killed tens of thousands of people in England. Though scientists were struggling to find the root cause of this epidemic, there was one brilliant scientist called John Snow who figured it out. John Snow identified that the disease was spreading through water contamination. Hence, he requested the city authorities to clear up a major water pump in the city and noticed that the disease decreased significantly. This was another victory to mankind, isn't it? Snow's work did not cure cholera overnight, but it eventually led to a global effort to improve urban sanitation and protect drinking water from contamination. While cholera has been largely eradicated in the developed countries, it still occurs in developing and underdeveloped countries here and there. There are other serious pandemics which occurred in the 20th and the ongoing century, but you all know about that very well. Let's hope and pray God shows mercy and gives strength to mankind to fight all these diseases and emerge as better beings.